Democrats are saying the quiet part out loud. President Joe Biden called to lock up former President Donald Trump during a New Hampshire campaign event on Tuesday.
I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up.
But the president appeared to quickly catch himself and change course.
I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
We've all heard this tune before, like back in 2016 when "lock her up" was a regular chant from Donald Trump and his supporters toward Hillary Clinton's campaign. Trump also called specifically for Clinton to go to prison, saying in a June 2016 speech, quote, "Hillary Clinton has to go to jail."
Yeah, I mean, I point this out all the time. The only person the only figure who is facing jail time for his political activities is Donald Trump himself. So it actually would not be weird if Joe Biden does think Donald Trump should be locked up. The Democratic levers of justice are squeaking toward that hopeful outcome. That is what the Democratic Party wants. So it's a desire to lock him up.
But first of all, I think I would argue against the idea that it is political activities. It's a rather expansive definition of political activities to suggest that Donald Trump has been charged with crimes in relation to that. He's been charged with trying to overturn the results of a legitimate election. Now, in the case of Biden, I think that particular clip is a pretty good reason why the Harris campaign wouldn't necessarily want Biden on the campaign trail all that much in the next 2 weeks. He does have this propensity to say things that just fuel conservative anger and Republican enthusiasm, therefore.
It's not even conservative anger, it's just, well, I guess I'm angry that he's not capable of being president and still serving as president?
They disagree. I mean, the argument of lock him up feeds into the Republican and particularly the MAGA argument that about a politicized justice system and all of that. Look, my view of the whole Trump thing is I think he should be charged for things that a regular citizen would be charged for, and he shouldn't when charges would probably not be pressed against a regular citizen. That puts me in the odd position that the one thing he's been convicted of is the one case that I thought was not a particularly strong case. And the things that I do think were very strong cases, particularly in relation to classified information at Mar-a-Lago and alleged obstruction around that, seem highly unlikely to come to trial.
The classified documents one is basically a slam dunk because it's obvious that he did do it and he admits to doing it. I also don't know how serious it actually is because political figures retaining classified documents is very common. Now, he went above and beyond and kept them where the rest of them gave them back. I just don't know how important that is. On the election stuff, I think the Georgia indictment has presented some impressive technical details that will tend to get him in trouble in terms of actually criminal, not just speech, but activity. Because I do, you and I come back to this a lot. I draw a distinction between speech and activity. In the Georgia case, there's more evidence of meetings, fake meetings being held or put together. The Jack Smith indictment does involve a lot of conduct that I think was bad from Trump, but if you read the indictment, it's a lot of he tweeted, he said, and that starts to get tricky for me, and very related to his January 6th a day of activity that was bad, and if you say is disqualifying to be president, fine, and which was adjudicated through the process of impeachment and removal where he survived. You can be sad about that. Is it criminal? I don't think he incited a riot. I think it's fine to say he's morally responsible for it and he shouldn't have, his actions contributed to it, and he shouldn't be president on that basis. I have a really hard time saying that it rose to the level of a criminal conspiracy.
So on the Jack Smith indictment, I think that Smith does lay out a pretty convincing argument as to how Trump did try to overturn the election. Now, as somebody who I'm unlikely to be chosen for the jury pool, I think I would almost certainly convict him on those charges. But the point is that Trump in that case can make the argument that he genuinely thought the election was in some way dodgy and therefore was trying to pursue a course that he thought was right. I don't believe that, and I don't actually think he genuinely thought that, but he can make that argument. In Mar-a-Lago, it's less, in fact, the classified documents themselves that bother me or the most incriminating thing. It's that if the conduct alleged in the indictment there actually happened, it's just textbook obstruction of justice. It's someone being subpoenaed for documents and conspiring to hide them. Now, of course, if it ever did come to trial, Trump would have his day in court. He's entitled to the presumption of innocence. He's entitled to the opportunity to try to rebut that allegation. But if you or I, and this is where I come back to my original point, if you or I were subpoenaed for documents and conspired with other people to hide them, we'd be going to jail in all probability.
Yeah, there's a lot of over-classification of documents that also takes place. He should have just given them back. Now, he might claim, or some of his defenders have claimed in that case, he thought it was important to keep those documents because they represented a dispute between him and some military authorities, right, for a plan to attack North Korea, and they were trying to say that was his plan, and he was trying to say, well, no, that was their plan, and so that's why so there might have been some reason for him to have the documents, but of course, if the federal government says you got to give them back, you got to give them back.
Yeah, which is the point. That's why he seems blatantly, well, the evidence of obstruction of justice seems damning, and that's a serious offence and carries a significant sentence of either 10 or 20 years, I believe.
More Rising still to come. Please stay tuned for more right after this.